First story. My student said something creepy. Now my husband thinks I'm overreacting. I'm a high school English teacher and have been for a few years. In that time, as a woman, I've been used to teenage boys behaving awkwardly around me sometimes, and pheromones are part of the deal. There have been occasional comments, but generally in the vein of, Miss So-and-so has a crush on you, or Miss, would you be so-and-so's Valentine? It's all in good humor in front of the whole class or a large group, and is well-meaning. My school throws a January ball for seniors, 16 to 18, which is basically an opportunity to celebrate the start of another calendar year. As it's after hours, not every teacher has to attend, and this year I was asked to chaperone. There is no alcohol permitted, but obviously some of them sneak in hip flasks and so on. During this month's ball, 2 students were huddled at a table in the corner of the hall, not dancing, just keeping to themselves. I know them well as problematic students who have difficulties socially, but also perform poorly academically, so they don't fit in with the popular crowd or the nerdy lot. We have some of these every year. Poor hygiene, greasy hair, long fingernails, that sort of thing. Immediately, I could tell they had been drinking from the way they spoke and smelled, and asked them to hand over any alcohol they had. One of the boys, call him Stuart, started protesting. He said the following, and I'm 100% sure this is what he actually said. Come on, miss. Don't pretend you won't open that bottle of Bailey's when you get home. Feet up in your dressing gown watching the new TV. Give us a break. Now, as soon as he said this, I felt my heart drop into my stomach and got cold all over. I had just bought a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream for myself the weekend before the dance. I am in the habit, on nights where I don't have much marking, planning, and want to treat myself, of having a bath and watching a movie series in my dressing gown. My husband bought a new television over Christmas. I asked him how he knew those things, and he feigned ignorance, basically saying it was a lucky guess. I was so shaken that I left them, and a short while later, they both left. But that night, I could barely sleep, and my paranoia kept growing. I simply cannot believe that he could have guessed all 3 those things. One, maybe, but no way all 3. My husband is away for work currently. I phoned and told him about it, and he basically downplayed my concerns, saying I probably mentioned those things to my class at various points, and this student has just remembered it. But I would never mention those things, I just wouldn't, and I'm sure I haven't. I've become more skittish at home when I hear noises. I only live in a small house, but when I arrive home from buying groceries, I check every single room and cupboard before I lock the doors. I've also arranged to have the locks changed. When cars stop outside the house, I turn all the lights off and peek at them through the blinds. I'm having trouble sleeping. In class, this student is quiet and the same as ever, not completing homework assignments, distracted in class. My husband is growing increasingly exasperated and worried more for my mental health than the possibility this student could somehow know details of my personal life. I mentioned it to my supervisor as well, and she also basically reasoned that I had either misheard what he said, it was a coincidence, or a combination of the two. What's the play here? I'm seriously freaked out and don't know how to even begin putting this to rest. Update. I wasn't expecting this post to receive so much attention. I'm really grateful to so many people who validated my concerns and helped me develop a plan of action. I got home a little while ago and am going out shortly with a friend to try rule out Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices with my neighbors. After that, the 2 of us will try and conduct a meticulous search of the house for any concealed devices, using the lights out phone camera trick some people recommended, and some other tips I've found online. Just to clarify a couple of points that I've seen raised a few times, dressing gown is a really common term here in England for what Americans might call a robe. It's absolutely common parlance. Here, most people I know would associate a robe with something a wizard might wear. In terms of it being a lucky guess, if he had just said relax with a glass of wine, I might have assumed so. But the dressing gown comment plus the Bailey's comment when I had just bought a bottle and the explicit mention of a new television, which I am 100% certain I did not misinterpret, these things make it so much harder to write off as a coincidence. As far as social media goes, I have Instagram, which is set to private under my maiden name, and my profile picture is not of me. I am not in the habit of connecting with former students. I only have 3 who have all gone on to study English at university and have used me as references. I also have a Snapchat, which I use only with my husband and very close friends. I have posted nothing about my new television, and I also don't think I've mentioned this to colleagues, let alone to students. Certainly, I said nothing about the Baileys I just bought. Update 2. I wasn't going to post an update here, but the number of worried people who have reached out to me made me reconsider. After a thorough search of my house, I found 2 devices. They seem to be camera devices. I don't know if audio is included. One of them was in the smoke detector in my bedroom, while the other was concealed in the wall of my living room. Looking at an old picture of my bedroom, it looks like the smoke detector itself has changed very slightly. I think that the new one is a device in itself, which the culprit somehow switched with the old one without us noticing. The matter has now been referred to the police. If it wasn't for so many of you taking me seriously and giving me practical advice, I wouldn't have had the courage to check, especially given my husband downplaying the concerns. He has been very apologetic and is coming back from his work trip early, but I've asked asked to spend some time apart and will be staying with my parents for a while. I'm glad I raised the issue with the head at my school and a couple of others, as there's a paper trail, another suggestion from the thread. Needless to say, I'm completely shaken to my core, and I have the most revolting feeling of my privacy being invaded. I have no idea how many people have been involved in this, but phones have been taken from students, and we should have more answers soon. I won't be making any more posts or updates. Thank you again to everyone for affirming me and making me feel sane. Second story. I found out who my daughter's secret boyfriend is. Now I'm terrified. I have two daughters, Lizzie, 17F, and Mackenzie, 14F. Their dad and I divorced a few years ago after I discovered he was having an affair. I have the kids most of the time, and their dad has them every weekend and during the summers. Lizzie has been dating Jacob, 18M, for over a year now. Jacob is constantly at our house. He's a sweet, good young man, and I believe he'll be valedictorian of their class. However, a few weeks ago, I overheard Lizzie on the phone with a guy, clearly flirting. At first, I thought it was Jacob, but then I heard her say, Brandon. I realized she was talking to someone else. Then a week later, she mentioned to me that she was heading out to hang with a friend, and when I looked out the window, I saw her get into a car and greet a guy with a kiss. It wasn't Jacob. Even after that, Jacob continued to come over, hanging out with Lizzie. He and Lizzie still acted like a couple, holding hands, laughing, and spending time together just like they always had. I felt disgusted knowing my daughter was being a two-timer. After Jacob left that day, I confronted my daughter. I asked her point blank, "Are you cheating on your boyfriend with another guy?" She said it was none of my business, and that her personal life was hers only. I told her she was wrong and that I raised her better than to treat people like this. She told me she was bored with Jacob and that Brandon was more her type now. I told her that if she wasn't happy, she should just break up with Jacob. She said she didn't know if she wanted to be with Brandon or if she was just having fun flirting and teasing. I told her cheating was unacceptable and wrong, and as a consequence, I grounded her. I also told her she wasn't allowed to go on her senior trip with her friends. She obviously did not take that too well and has been at her dad's place for the last couple of days. My ex-husband called me saying I was being unreasonable, not letting her go on the trip, and that her and Jacob was just a high school thing. He then told me I needed to put my bitterness aside and stop punishing his daughter. I told him I was teaching our daughter right from wrong, and that actions have consequences. Update. I received a lot of good advice from my original post and wanted to provide an update. My daughter has been at her dad's house since my last post. I called her saying I'm reconsidering canceling her senior trip, but she needs to tell me what's going on with this new guy, Brandon. She reiterated that it's not serious and she's just having fun. I told her she needs to decide which guy she actually wants to be with. She said she doesn't want Brandon, but he's fun, and Jacob can be too serious and controlling. She likes how chill Brandon is. She kept saying she doesn't understand why I care so much, that I'm supposed to be on her side, and that I'm acting like Jacob is my child and not her. I told her that wasn't the issue. The issue is that cheating is wrong, and she's hurting Jacob, who she claims to love. She says she's not hurting him because he doesn't know about Brandon. I told her she's going to have to tell him, and only then will she be allowed to go on her senior trip. She said she couldn't do that. She still wants Jacob, but he can be annoying sometimes, and she needs a change of pace. I told her it was wrong to use both of these guys. I asked her if Brandon goes to the same school, and she said no, that he isn't in school at all. I tried pressing her on how old Brandon is, but she wouldn't give me a clear answer. She just kept saying he's not that much older, but not in school. After the call, I contacted my ex-husband to express our concerns about this new guy and how secretive our daughter is being about him. He told me I need to stop being a helicopter parent and let our daughter make her own mistakes and decisions about her love lives. I told him we don't know anything about this Brandon guy, and how can he not be concerned about him? He said he trusts our daughter and that she is nearly an adult and that I'm just being controlling and projecting my issues onto her. I told him with how little we know about this Brandon and her not willing to at least break up with Jacob, there is no way she is going on the senior trip. My ex-husband got upset saying I cannot make these decisions on my own and that she is his daughter too. He told me he'll be paying for the full senior trip and that I need to back off if I want our daughter to ever come back home. Third story, my brother secretly poisoned my girlfriend for 3 years, and my parents defended him. She has always been allergic to lactose very severely, to the point where if she had any traces in her food, she would basically shit herself on the spot ever since she was a kid. My brother and I have always been on good terms and always hanged out together until 3 years ago when I met my girlfriend. He started getting more distant and mean towards me, talking about how she's ruining our bro-ship and taking me away from our family and him. I told him he was crazy and didn't think too much of it until recently. Going back to 3 years ago when I introduced Katie to my parents, he was livid. I moved out about 6 months later because I was tired of his constant bitching about her coming over to sleep and hang out. Ever since then, we would have family diners at my parents' every month on Sundays. My family is Italian, so we eat a lot of pasta and sauce relevant. My parents always made 2 separate meals ever since they met her, one with no milk or lactose-free milk for Katie, and one for the rest of us. She never had issues unless there was an accidental cross-contamination, which happened every so often. The problem was, every month, at those dinners, she was getting sick to the point of rushing to the bathroom and having excruciating diarrhea for an hour with severe cramps. Every single time. At one point, I started refusing to go, and my parents kept insisting, so I gave it another try. It was fine for a few months, and then it started yet again. This goes on off for 2.5 years. I got really mad last week and got up in the middle of dinner and said to my parents, "Something is up and someone is messing with Katie's food." My parents go quiet and ask me why I would say that. My brother turns rather pale and stopped smiling. I knew it was him. I confronted him and he started crying, saying he felt like he had to get payback at her for stealing away his big brother, that it wasn't fair. He said he was adding milk to the batch made for her and he had no regrets. I was absolutely livid. Katie was asswell. She excused herself and asked me to drive her back to our place. It's been 3 months and she cut contact with my parents. Katie refuses to talk to them anymore because they should have had my brother in check and given him a worst punishment. He literally got a smock behind the head, and that was it, and said she can't believe I didn't stop talking to them as well. My parents, on the other hand, are mad that we let this little incident break our relationships. My girlfriend says if I keep contacting them and insisting she forgives my brother, she's going to leave me. I love this girl to death. We've got plans to buy a house eventually and have kids. On the other hand, I love my parents too, but I can't have both anymore. What should I do? TLDR, my brother was adding milk to the pasta dishes when my girlfriend, who is lactose intolerant, came over to get her sick as revenge for ruining my relationship with him. Update, TLDR, my brother was adding milk to the sauce in the pasta dishes and making my girlfriend have severe allergic reactions. I've read over 200 comments from you guys, and it just validated my mind that my family is fucked up. I contacted my mom and confronted her about why she would defend my idiotic brother, and she basically said he was young and stupid. I told her a few of your comments and that Katie could press charges, and she broke down crying, saying he won't do it again. Hell no, he won't, because I told her I decided to cut them off for good. Katie was actually relieved when I told her I was on her side and cut them off. Basically told me she was going to dump me for being an idiot who couldn't support his girlfriend of 3 years when she was basically being tortured for fun. I'm just glad she didn't, and that we are getting through this together. Thank you guys for every comment, even the ones calling me out for being an idiot trying to make Katie forgive my brother for the horrible things he did. When you're faced with this kind of dilemma and you've been close to your family for over 20 years, you get blindsided. So me and Katie cut them out starting today, and we plan to move to the USA next year. We always wanted to live there and finally be far away from them. Fourth story, ex-wife opened $6,000 in credit cards in my name. Now she's threatening to take my son. This is a sad situation, but after my divorce, I ended up moving about 30 miles away, where I bought a house and got a job transfer. The divorce was finalized about 4 years ago. She got primary custody as she lives in the school district, though I get most weekends and holidays. We've been fairly cordial about it, and it's been working for a while. Eventually, I'd like to get to a 50-50 as she'll be moving to a different school district once he hits high school shortly, and I'd just move into that district. My problem is that my ex has opened up a couple of credit cards in my name. I had no idea this was happening until I received a letter from a collection agency. It was pretty obvious she was the one who opened the accounts, as the address on the accounts are hers, and it looks like the statements are from mainly where she shops. When I dropped our son off on Monday, I told her I found the accounts, and I'd have to go to the police unless she paid them off completely right away. She denied it at first, then said if I went to the police, she'd disallow visitation for safety reasons. Unfortunately, she'd be able to do this, and has done so in the past, requiring me to go back to court with my lawyer to force her to follow the parenting agreement. That's how I gained all holidays shortly after the divorce, basically as a punishment for failing to comply with the parenting order, but still allowing her to be the custodial parent. I don't want my son to have to go through this, but I am certainly not taking the hit to my credit for what she's doing. I'm probably going to make the report, but is there anything else I'd be missing her? Update. There's some good and some bad, unfortunately. Since this started several months ago, she has been horrible. I went to the police regarding the credit card accounts. Getting the report was painless, and they they said it happens a lot. Both of the credit cards have dropped off my credit report. My credit is back to normal, and I've set up a credit monitor and to make sure it doesn't happen again. It doesn't look like she's going to be prosecuted for opening the cards in my name. I was told when I made the report it would be up to the credit card companies to cooperate with the prosecutors if they wanted to go through with fraud charges. Apparently they don't cooperate most of the time, but I can still ask the county to prosecute on behalf of myself, which I did. In November, I got a form letter saying they wouldn't be prosecuting my case. I asked a criminal defense lawyer I know about it, and he said the county maybe goes forward with 10% of criminal cases where people get arrested. It's nearly zero where there is no probable cause for an arrest. He said his job is basically just working out deals for clearly guilty people. He also said to let it go at this point, so I've come to terms with the fact that she's not going to give criminal charges and probably not even a lawsuit. She also did exactly what she said she would do and stopped letting me see our son. I've documented every single instance, about 30 total since September, that she's failed to follow our court-ordered custody agreement. I finally got her served at work. That's another thing I don't like about family courts. And she claimed I was abusive and manipulative. I had the police report for the credit cards and basically said the visitation violation started the week after I made the report. The judge basically gave her a final chance to follow the order before he would grant an alteration and she'd possibly face criminal charges. The first child exchange after the hearing a couple weeks ago, she said she needs more child support and alimony, asking for an extra $1,500 a month. I told her absolutely not. Last week I went to pick him up. She never showed up and I got a documentation number from the police. Next day, new account detected email. I got the account canceled before the card was even sent to her address. Froze my credit, made another report, waiting for the will not prosecute letter. She's failed to show up with him ever since. Got her served at work and our new hearing is in a week and a half. I know eventually things are going to work out, but she's really testing my nerves.